Welcome back to the Peace of Living podcast. We are your hosts, Jason
and Allison,
and we're so excited to be with you guys tonight. We have a very special guest, Maddie or
Madeline La Fleur.
Madeline La Fleur. Our second Maddie that we've had on, which is just a great name, apparently.
Not all of his former students and current students are named Maddie.
We just happen to be the best ones.
But we've had a few, and they're the best ones.
Kidding.
That's right.
I'm just kidding.
That's right. They're the best ones. So I taught Maddie when she was first a freshman at Brighton High School, and then I had the great privilege of teaching her again when she was a senior.
You had me as a junior.
Did I teach you? That's right, as a junior.
And as a college student.
As a senior, and
So,
now
look
as a
at
college
that.
student. That's right. I forgot I taught you as a
5
junior,
years.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's so awesome. Okay, so Maddie, I first heard Maddie's story, obviously, several years ago, and she was a freshman, and now she's a college student about to go on her mission. And Maddie, where are you going on your mission?
I am going to Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Yay.
And I was actually assigned to labor in the Sao Paulo Temple Visitor Center for the first year of my mission.
So cool.
So
what happens after the first year?
So the last 6 months, I'm reassigned to somewhere else in Brazil. It could be in Sao Paulo, but more than likely it's not. It's
Wow, that's
somewhere
so
else
cool.
in Brazil. So I have no idea.
Temple
until then.
Visitor Center in Brazil. So you'll definitely be speaking some Spanish.
Yes,
Right? Just kidding.
Spanish and
Just kidding.
Portuguese and English
just
and probably French. Who knows? I have no idea.
That's so cool.
Meet a ton of people. Yeah, I'm excited.
So Maddie's about to leave here in like 2 weeks. So we had to snag her while she's still here.
Lucky me.
And she bailed out on one of her other friends, which we might have her on the podcast. She's opening her mission call tonight. But anyway, Maddie's here tonight. And like I was saying, I first heard her story when she was a freshman in my class. And it's phenomenal. I think she has such a powerful and unique story just pertaining to her testimony, her faith in Jesus Christ. And I mean, ever since we kind of started, talking about having people on the podcast, Maddie has been one of the top that I've said we have to have her on because I've been personally inspired by her story. Like I've been blessed by it. I've remembered it vividly for years, and I just know that she needs to share it. And so hopefully you feel that way too, Maddie.
Actually, just kidding. Just kidding.
I know that you probably feel a little self-conscious, and you mentioned last week, I don't want to come across a certain way, but just speak from your heart. And we would just love to hear, just tell us about your own faith journey and like how it's progressed over the years, because you've kind of had a unique story.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you. That was quite the intro. Thank you.
You deserve it.
I do have to say that if you were listening, you were in the right spot because these people are absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I felt like I knew Allison before I even met her 4 years later because of the way, Jason talks about you. But, you guys, I have to give credit to you, in my story. You probably don't agree, but you definitely you have been a rock for me for a long time.
Thanks,
and
Maddie.
You were quite inspiring to me as a freshman.
Oh.
So thank you.
I have to jump in then and say, while you're complimenting us, I have to say a big thank you to you because I don't even know if you know this, but I mean, I'm sure that Jason's mentioned to you how several times throughout his teaching career, he's had the opportunity to take other jobs. Mm-hmm. And there were many times when he came really close to doing that. And there was one time in particular where he was like going to sign on the dotted line, basically, with another job. And you had, but you hadn't yet jumped ship yet. And you had written him this really nice, sweet, sincere letter. And it changed his life, honestly. And it was a very kind thing. And I mean, I feel like these are the types of letters that any teacher dreams of getting from any student. And so thank you. As his wife, I want to say thank you to you for sending him that, because I think that really motivated him to stay because he was in the right place. And that was a reassurance to him. So I am grateful. And we've seen what's happened in the years, because that was years ago, right? At this point.
Was that might have been your junior year that you wrote me that letter, I think.
Yeah,
your junior year.
Yeah, and here we are. And you think of all the other people that you've been able to meet and teach since then that maybe would not have happened if this beautiful gal sitting next to us hadn't written you that letter. So, yeah, Thank you.
you're
And might I say, like, meeting you officially in person, when was that? Like a month ago at Institute or something?
Yeah.
Like, I truly have felt like I already knew you too. Because he has talked about you a lot, as he does with many of his students. And it's nice to just meet you in person and be even more blown away. Because I'm like, then I can actually like feel your spirit, as cheesy as that sounds, in person, because you're so full of light and it's so obvious.
Oh, thank you.
Anyway, I'll stop showering you with praise and let you tell your story now. But anyway.
Well, I just have to reaffirm what Allie has said too. Like, seriously, Maddie, like, I think the world of you, and you've always known that. And like, it's true. I owe so much of like the joy that I've experienced, especially the last few years teaching seminary and now seminary and institute, to you. Like that came at a pivotal time. I still have that letter. I've even thought about framing it and putting it in my office. I don't know how weird that would make people feel, but it means that much to me. And so,
Good.
yeah, but anyway, Maddie, you've just made a huge impact. And it's true. After meeting you, when Allie met you like a month ago, the first thing Allie said to me was like, I just want to adopt her.
So, you would not be the first to say that either. So
you're in high demand.
I would join everyone.
We're at the top of the list. Okay,
joining everyone.
We're at the top of the list.
I'll take all the Maddies. I'll take all the Maddies.
All the Maddies.
There you go.
Anyway, Maddie, tell us your story, my friend. What's it been like for the last long time? Tell us all about it.
Well, I guess, I mean, my story is kind of my whole entire life. So, but when I was 13, turning 14, so I was going into freshman year. My dad stopped going to church, and previous to this, my mom, like growing up, she wasn't necessarily like inactive. She like, my whole entire life, I've known that she's loved God. She's had a really good relationship with him. She is a very spiritual woman, but she has had struggles in her life, whether it's like my dad, because my dad was diagnosed with brain tumor cancer like 20 years ago. And so he's disabled because of it. And so she's the working mother and she's a nurse. So it's tiring on the body. And so Sundays usually were her only days off because she was on call. So she didn't really go to church very much growing up unless it was like a primary program or Mother's Day or whatever it was. But my dad took us until we were 13 turning 14. And, at that age, it's kind of like you go because your parents kind of tell you to. They kind of make you, and you're like, I don't want to go. It's so early in the morning. And, your parents are like, this is spiritual feeding. You need to go, and you're like, okay, that's kind of creepy. But sure, just stop talking. I'll go. Just stop talking.
We're going to church, dang it.
So I didn't meet my brothers and I have two younger brothers, and they're 15 and 16, and I'm 19. So me and Bo are 3 years apart. And I stopped going because mom and dad didn't go, so I didn't have to go. But after about 2 months, a month and a half to 2 months, I felt really weird. I felt really, out of place, and I didn't really know how to describe it at that time. But on Sundays, I felt really awkward. I guess is a word that you could use for it. I felt like I didn't have a purpose very much. I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. I don't know what to do today. I felt very strongly that was like the day for our Lord, like that is Jesus's day, like every day is Jesus's day, but especially Sunday. And so anyway, so I started going again by myself, and I would walk to church. Granted, it's really close to our house, so it wasn't like a trek through and back. But I would walk to church, and I would walk in, and I would sit in the back row. And after about like 2 months, I would say, I started taking my brothers with me. And I'll remind you, at this time I was like 14, and my brothers, so they were 11 and 10, and they were like, we don't want to go, like. And I told them, I was like, you guys don't have a choice. I was like, you can't choose if you want to go or not until you are 16. And they're like, that's not fair. And I was like, yes, it is. And I was 14. Who am I to say, you can't choose till you're 16. But I was like, if you know what you're choosing between as of like right now in this moment, then that's your thing. But I was like, explain to me what the Book of Mormon is, explain to me like the Godhead, explain to me. And I asked them some questions and they were like, whoa. And I was like, so there you go. So I was like, point proved, you guys are going to church with me. And they didn't fight it after that. They didn't. They were like, okay, sounds good. And, at that age especially, it's like whatever the big sister says, like, the younger kids are like, they're happy to do it, So my favorite color was purple. Their favorite color was purple. If I wanted to go to church, they wanted to go to church. So for the next 3 years of my life, we'd wake up in the morning and we'd walk to church and we'd sit in the back row. Sometimes we wouldn't pay attention, but we were there. That was what mattered. We took the sacrament, we were there. And then we'd walk home. And sometimes we'd get rides from, church members or like people on our ward, and they'd be like, hey, kiddos, jump in. We were like, yeah, we don't have to walk. But anyway, so we did that for almost 4 years. And then at the beginning, or about halfway through my senior year, I told my mom that I was going on a mission, and I was like, listen, prior to my mission, obviously, I get endowed, I go through the temple and I want you to be there. And I was like, I know, that you don't have a temple recommend right now. And both my parents didn't have one. I couldn't tell you the last time that I know that they did. And I'm like 19, so that's like a while, so I don't, but, anyways, and so I was like, I want you to be with me when I do it, but also I understand if you can't, or if you don't want to be there, I don't take it personally, but I don't want to do it alone. And, I'm not sure that was like the sole moment of my mom's turning point or whatever it was, but, a lot of people in my family have said like, it is because of you, which has been kind of a crazy idea to me, I think you grew up always hearing it's parent to child, the effect, but it was weird for me living the child to parent effect. But, so my mom, like we went through the temple a couple months before, and then, I told my dad too, and, he wasn't able to prepare, I guess you could say, soon enough, or it wasn't his time, to be ready to go through. But I went through the temple, in November, and my mom was there with me, and it was like my mom and I and my grandparents, and I had like aunts and uncles and like really close people to me who mean a lot to me. And, and it was really cool. And then actually my dad just got his temple recommend this last Sunday.
Wow.
And him and I got to go to the temple together on Tuesday before my shift. Working there. So I was in the temple for a long time. But, so
was that the day I saw? No, I saw you on.
Yeah. You saw
Saturday.
Me the next week.
That's right.
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah. Oh no.
So
yeah. Cool. Yeah. A couple days after.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's kind of, I guess, like the overview of it. But
that's amazing.
So.
And so I remember too hearing like, well, first of all, that's just incredible. Like,
thanks.
like seriously, Maddie, like you're such a light, obviously, to your family. You have been to me, and I mean, I look at, I haven't taught Bo yet, but Solomon's in my class, and it's pretty cool. I mean, and he's in his scriptures. He knows his scriptures. He can read his scriptures. And I think smart. A lot of that has to do with you as well. Like, didn't you spend time reading his scriptures with your brothers?
Yeah.
What was that like?
I mean, it was kind of interesting because when I started going to church, I guess by myself, it was kind of like a shift from leaning on other people's testimony to making my own. And I think at like 14, the scriptures are kind of hard to read. It doesn't really make sense, especially when you don't have help reading it. And I would have my brothers come in my room I would try every night, but it was usually every Sunday night. And we'd pray together, but, I'd read the scriptures, and I'd either have like us popcorn read, and we'd all go around reading it, or I'd have them like have their scriptures, and I'd give them all a colored pencil, and they'd all follow along with their pencil. And after a couple verses, I'd be like, so what I just read, like, what does that mean? And they're like, well, I'm like, let me reread it for you. I'll reread it. So, but I mean, looking back on it, I mean, I guess you could say like, wow, that's like a really hard thing that you did. But for me, it wasn't. I think going to church by myself, in the beginning, I felt kind of embarrassed. Not because I was going, but because of the fact that I was by myself, and the fact that when I walked into the door, everyone would look at me And it's not a really usual thing to see, you know, a child going by herself.
Yeah.
And everybody else looking at me like they were with their mom and their dad, and like they had all their siblings there, and a lot of them had their grandparents there, you know, and whatever it was. And so I felt very not judged, but just watched by the world, you know. And at that age, you know, it's like the end of the world, you know, everything that happens is it's a lot more intense than it actually is. But I realized that I was never actually alone. You know, I really was never alone, ever, whether it was my brothers with me or God, you know, like Jesus held my hand the entire time. And it's like now looking back on it, I see it a lot more, you know, than in the moment of living it. You know, I feel like that's the case with a lot of, you know, moments in the height of it. You don't realize how hard it is, or how easy or how much help you're receiving until afterwards and you look back on it. And so it wasn't really hard for me to do it because I had help the entire time, whether it was from Jesus or people in my ward. You know, I've been blessed with an absolutely amazing ward, you know, and people, they pick me up for activities, or they would eventually try to pick us up on our way to church. And we would say to them, like, no, it's fine. We like to walk, you know, or whatever it was. But I also owe them credit, because I feel like if I didn't have a ward who felt as welcoming, I don't think I would have gone. I don't think I would have done it, you know?
Yeah.
So
that's incredible. I love that you said like Jesus or whoever, but Jesus was holding my hand the entire time. I love that, how you said that.
It's going to be our pull quote.
I think so. Yeah. Jesus is holding my hand the entire time. I'm curious I'm putting you on the spot here, but when you say that, when you look back on, you know, since the time you were 14 until now, can you think of, you mentioned the ward members being there for you and everything. Can you think of, or does anything else come to mind on how Jesus has held your hand? Maybe you didn't notice it in the moment, but now looking back, you can see like, yeah, there he was.
Well, I've definitely kind of raised my brothers in a way. You know, my dad, he is home. He's technically the stay-at-home parent, but he's not very parenty per se. You know, I kind of raised myself and my brothers because my mom was always gone, and my dad, I don't think, was capable of it.
Sure.
You know, and from a young age, you know, I just kind of took it on. And I was like, sure, like I'll do this, you know, and there were things that happened in my life between, whether it was like other people or like family members or my dad, but things that hurt me really bad. And I never wanted my brothers to feel like they were neglected or not seen or whatever it was. And so I felt a lot of help over the years of, you know, being there for my brothers, you know, and having the strength to kind of pick myself up so I can pick them up, you know, because if Bo or Saul were the oldest children, I don't know what would happen. I don't know what happened. They're so lucky to have me. Just kidding. But, so I feel like that is definitely, you know, like my whole entire life. I felt like he's been there like every corner, you know, kind of helping me help them. And a couple years ago, my sophomore year, I tore my ACL playing soccer. Mm-hmm. And up until that point, soccer was like my life. It was everything, you know, as everything, you know, it happens to always be like that. But,
yeah, right.
I had just gotten home from a college tournament, like a college scouting tournament in Florida, and I actually had offers. I had people had sent me emails, and they couldn't be like an official offer because I was still too young. But there were people like talking and asking me to come tour and all this stuff. And I was like, this is so awesome. And the first indoor game, I tore my ACL, and it felt like my life had like ended, had absolutely just ended. And I, actually was lucky enough because I ran track in high school too. I did hurdles, and that season some of my best friends in high school were juniors and seniors, and that was going to be my last year running with them, and they all got canceled too because of COVID. And so I was like, yeah, COVID's for me. Like nobody else has to do it, but not actually, but trying to see the positives out of negative. But right. But I actually got reached out to at the beginning. This is the beginning of my junior year, and I got reached out to by like a private track club called Gold Medal Athletics, and they invited me to come run with them, to come train with them, and they said like, based off of your freshman times, like we like infer that you need just help here and here and here. And you'll be like you'll do great because you're in a great position for a freshman. And, I told them, I was like, I tore my ACL a couple months ago, so I don't know if you still want me there. And they're like, we'd love to have you. So the day that I got cleared to run, I started running with them, and we trained at BYU. So it was it was legit, like it was like the kids that ran there were very good. They were very good. And I was like the worst I'd ever been in my life. And that was extremely hard for me. I had never ever been in that position in my life. I've always kind of been, and I'm blessed, I've been blessed with like athletic ability, but I had never been like the worst ever. I had always been the person who almost people followed, or they would kind of watch me, whether it was in dance or track or soccer. And so, that was very hard for me. And my mom would drive me down there. It was 2 days a week. And she'd drive me down there to the track. So that way I didn't have to drive back because I was exhausted after, exhausted. I'd throw up after practice. I would, it was like, I had never been pushed to that, to that point before in my life.
Yeah.
And, after a couple, 2 months of doing it, I told my mom, I was like, hey, listen, I feel better now. I don't need you to leave work anymore to come with me. You can stay at work all day, blah, blah, blah. And she'll be learning this from hearing this now. But, I actually told her that because I would sob the entire way home. I would just sob. And that way when I got home and she asked me how was track, I could tell her with a straight face or even with a smile on my face and say it was good. It was hard, but it was good, and I'm not I'm not a big person on, showing my vulnerable side, and so I wanted to do it by myself, and I wanted to, kind of close myself off. And I think after a couple months, I had an amazing coach, and he saw that I had a really hard time watching other people because everyone watches you hurdle, and I would fall at practice and it's loud. And so everyone would turn and look at me and I felt very, again, judged. I felt very, looked at, and people were like, oh, she's not that good. She's not going to be as good as us, and I hated it. And, my coach texted me on one of my drives home, and he texted me a really long paragraph. And in the paragraph, the first line was it said, Maddie, I am proud of you. And I just I had to pull over because I just started bawling. I was bawling. And, I haven't talked about this in a while.
I remember this story.
Emotions again.
Oh yeah.
But, the first thing he said was, Maddie, I am proud of you. He's like, you are not what he started listing my teammates' names, you are not Alyssa, you are not Abby, you are you, and it is your journey, your journey, it's your progress, and it is you that I am, I'm working with, that I'm concerned about, don't watch them, you are not them, and your journey is separate from them, and it was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I felt but I felt like God was talking right to me, and it felt like it applied to more than just track, more than just sports. It was my entire life.
Yeah.
And so I felt very lifted up at that point, and I, looking back on it, I was slightly depressed. I was, in a rough spot and not being able to do anything active. And it was wintertime and I'm already it's dark and cold, not getting to ski with my whole family, with all my friends, and not getting to, do a lot of activities that everyone else got to do. And it was tough for me. And so that was a point in my life where I very strongly felt him. And actually recently when I went through the temple, after, initiatories and stuff, my mom and I were put into this room, where we were free to do whatever we wanted. We could, talk, or we could read the scriptures, or we could pray, or whatever it was. And I took the opportunity to, try to open up. It's not my strong suit. And I kind of told my mom some concerns or doubts or fears or just thoughts that I had from the past couple months, because I had received my mission call 2 months before this, and I was like, listen, I thought after receiving my call everything was supposed to be easier, and I don't feel like enough people talk about how hard it is after receiving your call,
Absolutely.
think we can both attest to that. All three of us.
Yeah. It's like the opposition comes often before the light, but it also always comes after too.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
And God never left me. I left God. If there was ever a point in my life where, there was a lack of like feeling the spirit or whatever it was. And I think when I got my mission call, I was like, you know what? Like I'm set. Like I don't have to devote as much time anymore because I've shown God that I love him so much. I've chosen to serve a mission. I've got my mission call. I have my leave date and everything. And, I didn't read my scriptures as much. I didn't pray as much, and it was weird for me because I'd never felt that distant from God ever in my life, and I was talking to my mom about this and I was like, my patriarchal blessing says that like God will use you up, like quote, God will use you up. And I was like, I don't feel like I'm being used at all. I feel like I'm in a very weird point of my life where it's kind of in between. I went to college for this last fall semester as a fill-in. I wasn't old enough to leave on my mission yet. And so I just was like, I guess I'll just do school. But I didn't really want to be there. I had fun, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to be on my mission. I wanted to be gone already. And I was like, I know that I'm not alone, but I feel very lonely. And it's weird because I'm surrounded by people. I feel like that's a very common feeling, especially at that time of age, in college, living by yourself, you are surrounded by people, but nobody actually knows you, and I think we forget that God knows us, we're never alone. But, anyway, so I had been telling my mom, thoughts like that. And then this woman came in and, her name is Marianne Wright. She's one of I don't even know what they're called, like the three head sisters.
Of the temple presidency?
Yes. Yeah.
The matron.
Yes,
and then
the
matron.
matrons.
Is that, I don't know what they're all called. Assistant, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she came in and she was like, I'm here to just give you like an overview, kind of prepare you for like what you're going to do and, kind of talk you through it just so you go in not super blind, not feeling very, ambushed by it. And, mid-sentence, she like just stopped mid-sentence and she was like, I'm going to pause what I'm saying and put that on hold. And she's like, I feel like I need to say this to you right now. And she just kind of went on and was like, you are not alone. You are not alone. Like God is with you always. She was like, you are being used every day of your life, whether you know it or not. She's like, I don't even know why you're here right now. I'm like, why are you going to the temple? And I was like, I'm going on a mission. And she was like, you are being used for so much good.
Yeah.
And she was like, where are you going? And I was like, Brazil. And she was like, I served in Brazil. And she was like, I felt like I was so connected to you just walking in. And she's like, maybe that's why we're like Brazilian sisters. But she like went on she answered almost every single one of my doubts. Wow. My fears, my thoughts. And I was just like, I had no words, I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you, cause I didn't know what else to say. And it had been a couple months since I had like felt the spirit like overwhelmingly, Yeah. And I was just like taken aback. And after this, I was sitting in, I don't know, like the first room waiting for everybody to come in, everyone in my party to come and join for the endowment. And my mom looked at me and she said, how does it feel to be seen? She was like, Maddie, like, because Sister Wright had said, I can see the light in your eyes. And she was like, it is not a very common thing anymore to see in the youth. She was like, you are glowing. And I can see it and I can feel it just walking into this room. And my mom said, how does it feel to be seen? And I didn't even know what to say to that either. I was like, I have felt so useless, in these past couple months. Like I haven't been doing anything, I haven't really impacted anybody in a great way, but it doesn't have to be great. It's little things by every single day that you do, just saying hi or smiling to someone. But I don't like to do that. Like I want to be like, I'm gonna preach right now and it's going to change your life and, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so that was another time, where one out of the many where I felt again like Jesus was holding my hand and he was helping me through it.
Wow.
And like opening my eyes and wiping the tears that I am not willing to let like show, but he was there, so that's just another example. So.
Well, I don't know if you want to say something, but I sure do. I just got to say, well, Maddie, like this is, I mean, you've heard it from, how many witnesses do you need, right? I hope from, us and Marianne at the temple and so many others, like you always have glowed and you are glowing. Like you just have a light that we've talked about in class so many times. I love that story. You have the light that's in their eyes, those that follow Jesus and have Jesus in their heart. Like there's just a different light about them and you have it and you always have. And you're right. Like, we're going to be in this work forever because God is going to use you up. And he has for a young age, but that's going to be the rest of your life. But I promise you that he is going to richly bless you for it. Like you have just no idea. And he already has, but like we can see it. We can see it right now. And that's going to be just the rest of your life because that's who you are, Maddie. Like you're doing so many wonderful things already. Just even by being around you is like bringing the light of Jesus into our lives.
I feel like I'm just sitting here in awed silence, honestly. Like, no, you blow me away. Like I knew like this sister at the temple when I first met you, like there's something different about this girl. You do, like Jason said, give off that light. That's very apparent. And like what you've shared with us just now from starting from your teenage years on up, like, I guess you're still technically a teenager, aren't you? It just seems like you're older than that. Yeah. I know. Yeah, I know. That's it. It's, I'm like, I keep forgetting that I'm like almost twice your age. That's scary. Well, you are, not me, but just kidding. But yeah, I feel humbled. I felt humbled when Maddie Fisher was on the podcast, and I feel humbled again with you, Maddie, on the podcast, because I'm like, these are our future leaders. You are our future leaders. And God knows that, and we're in good hands. And I feel, don't you just feel like a wave of optimism sitting here with her?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the many reasons why I love my job so much. It's just like, I feel nothing but excitement and optimism for the future. And like I was talking to my class, the other day, like, you go on a mission, you'll see, at least it might be different in Brazil, but at least in my mission, it's like the chances of someone, especially a family, joining the church when the parents are like in their 40s or 50s or later is so low. It just doesn't happen. And the difference you're making for your peers right now at a young age will be long lasting for their whole life. Like people make the changes, like these kinds of big changes, and like to follow Jesus when they're young. And that's what I'm trying to get at is like, you are where you're supposed to be and doing what you're supposed to be doing. You've had the friends and the high school experience and college experience and all that, and you will continue to do so because God knows he can use you where you need to be, where he can impact those around you, because you'll just naturally share that and people will gravitate to Jesus Christ.
So I guess I have a question then for you, since you are closer to the youth than we are. What would you say to anyone a youth who might be listening to this, who maybe is in the trenches right now and unable to feel the hand of Jesus helping them along as you did? What would you say to them to help them keep going?
That's a good question. Honestly, I think just telling them that, I think we're not told enough, that we are seen, and we are not alone. But I think that it has to be, it is our decision, in the end. God is not closed off at all. He is waiting with open arms. And every time that we feel lonely or that we feel, in the trenches, like you said, it's because we have almost put ourselves in that place. We aren't allowing ourselves to achieve greater things. We aren't allowing ourselves to be given love, and a different kind of love that you don't find on this earth. We're not allowing ourselves to reach a different kind of joy that is not achievable alone on our own, and, it takes personal work, even having chosen to go to church from a really young age, it hasn't been butterflies and rainbows the whole time, and I have been in ups and downs, and I have felt the Spirit more strongly at different points of my life. And it all comes back to my own efforts, how much time I set aside for him and how much I test, what I give back, and it's like Brother Bella said a lot of times, we give a little and he gives back a lot.
Yeah.
We just need to give a little bit, because God is a forgiving God. He understands us. He knows our heart. He knows our intentions, and he is waiting for us to just realize it, And so, if I could say anything, I'd say keep going, because it's not the end. It's not as big a deal as you feel it is. It isn't the end of the world. And God is where you find true joy in life, so.
Okay, well, you just are way wiser than I will ever be. No. And to tell you the truth, I guess I asked you that question in the frame of responding to a youth, but the truth is what you said is applicable to anybody of any age who might be struggling. And I appreciate what you said because in you saying that, I had ideas come to me of ways that I can even, be a little better, do a little better, get a little bit closer to him, because it is so easy to just kind of, like you said, you start to think, well, I'm doing good things. I should be doing enough, right? I don't need to add more to my plate, but there are ways that we can get closer to him. We keep exerting that effort, keep reading our scriptures wholeheartedly. That is truly how we tap into that power. And it's just too easy to let go of, right. I think. Speaking for myself personally, even daily scripture study, if it just becomes some rote habit without any meaning, then it won't have the impact that it's supposed to. Mm-hmm. So your words are kind of a call to repentance to me, honestly, as your elder, of how I need to.
Not even as my sister.
As your sister. There I like that word better. Thank you. She's so great. Seriously, let's really adopt her. but yeah, just thank you. I can already tell you've already been a missionary to your brothers and to your mom and dad, and I am so excited for the people in Brazil. I have visions in my mind right now of you sitting in Brazilian living rooms and just touching so many hearts. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited for them.
Thank you.
So I've been thinking this whole time, ever since we talked a few weeks ago at Institute, and now hearing this story about Marianne and your experience there when you first went through. So little backstory, and you can fill us in better than I can, Maddie. But so Maddie has been serving in the temple all the time. And so I'm just curious if that experience going through for your first time impacted your desire to go and serve in the temple, or how did that come to be? Why did you want to do that? And what has that done? What has that experience done for you? Because that's so cool. Not everybody gets to do that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I have to say, I feel so lucky and so blessed that I've had this time. I was talking to you guys earlier, I received my mission call in September and I leave February 6th. So it's been I had a couple months, and I have gotten at times wrapped up and I just want to go now. I don't want to wait. I'm not really doing anything with my life, and, I wasn't doing nothing. I was getting to serve in the house of the Lord. Twice a week, Tuesdays and Saturdays with the most amazing women and men ever. But I definitely think that when I went through that made the desire to want to serve in the temple a lot stronger, because I realized just how much of an impact those women have on you, and that they're there, they are the workers of God, You know, they're there to guide you and to love you and make sure that you feel at home. And I think that the Draper Temple does, like, the workers there do an absolutely tremendous job at making sure that you feel seen and heard and known, you know, and loved. At every turn, at every corner, like, there's someone there waiting for you, standing there, waiting and ready to guide you or help you with whatever needs you have. And I wanted to be that for other people. And so actually one of my best friends, Ellie Johnson, Brother Bella, another one of his students, her and I were like, oh my gosh, it's like working the temple together. So we worked on Tuesdays together, and then she worked Thursday and I worked Saturday as my other day. And, you know, I loved it. I got to be an ordinance worker from like the very first day. And like really fast, I guess. I memorized, you know, things that, I needed to memorize in order to be able to, you know, be a worker and an actual helper and be a part of the process and other people's endowments, whether it was for them or a proxy one, you know, for other people, for the dead.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I had never felt that much constant love and joy and peace and like excitement to be in a place for, you know, like 6 consecutive hours, you know, every single post, because you switch every 30 minutes. And I was so happy to be there. And I was so happy to go to the next one. And everyone that came in, my face hurt at the end of every shift. I've been smiling and talking and laughing just all day long. And it's like, I can't even describe it better than saying, like, I felt like I was like high off Jesus. I really felt like I was high on Jesus and his love and his work. And I feel extra blessed to have been able to work in the temple because I'm a Temple Visitor Center missionary in Brazil. Yeah. So I have been able to like see the, you know, like I don't even know, like the secrets of like God's kingdom unlocked more further, like, you know, as far as we know on earth. And a lot of kids my age, I feel like don't get to go to the temple a lot.
No.
Or we don't make it a point to go enough. Or like before your mission, you go once when you're in doubt, and then you go maybe once on your whole mission, and that's it. You know, and I have been able to like stand at every post, go in every room, be a part of every ordinance and know it inside and out. You know, I've been able to memorize all of it and be a part of it on both sides, you know, as a patron or as the worker.
God, that's so cool.
And like that will do nothing but help me, you know, in serving in the temple, in the temple visitor grounds, you know, and I will do exactly what I did these last like 6 weeks. You know, I felt like I almost had like a preview of my, of my mission, and I loved it. I loved it. And
what
I loved
experience.
the women. I know. I loved the women that I worked with.
I've never had that experience. We've never had that. It's so cool.
It was cool. It was cool.
And you weren't called. You just like straight up went to him. Yeah. You're like, hey, I want to work here.
Yeah. I went to my bishop and I was like, listen, I want to work in the temple. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah, actually. He's like, okay, well, okay. I'll transfer your records back over from back from Logan, because I did a semester at Utah State. Yeah. And he was like, and I'll set you up a meeting. And I was like, yeah.
That is so cool.
I loved it. I loved it.
Okay, so I have to ask, because I mean, I know, well, a couple things. I know, first of all, there's a lot of younger people, whether it's in high school or before their mission or before they get married, they're very anxious about going to the temple. And then I have to add on too, it seems like for men and women, it seems like there's a lot of like hesitancy about like wearing the garment even. What, like, I mean, again, like Ali said, you're closer to the age group than we are. I'm blessed to be around you guys all the time. but still, like, now that you've had the experience you've had getting high on Jesus
right?
with the temple.
It's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, high on Jesus. That's so great. What would you say to your friends, to anybody listening that might be younger, that's staring a mission in the face or marriage in the face or just going to the temple, you know, coming up? Like, what would you say to them, having, you know, with the experience you've had now, kind of addressing those concerns that maybe they have about going?
Well, I was one of them I got my mission call in September, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go through the temple in like January, and I'll leave like a month later. And as much as I want to be like, oh, that's not true, like for the reasons it was because I wanted to wear my clothes. I wanted to wear the clothes that I had bought in the last however many years. And I was like,
it's my closet.
Hold on,
Yeah.
and my bishop actually texted me, and he was like, hey, when are you planning to go through the temple? And I was like, January. And he said, why? Like, why January? And I was just kind of like, I sat there and I was like, why January? And I went through my reasonings, and I was like, that is a terrible reasoning. That's like the only thing. And I was like, you know what? And I was like, actually, I just changed my mind. I'm going to go through in November.
Cool.
Like, I'm going to go through next month. And he was like, why is that? And I was like, because I am being selfish.
Wow.
I am being selfish. The temple is not there to put aside, and it's not there. I mean, it is there waiting for us, but we shouldn't be putting it off because of selfish reasons and of worldly things. It's like, it is the house of the Lord. It is like one of the only places you can go on this earth and feel as close as you can to Christ, And, I went in November, and, even now I still kind of have a hard time adjusting.
Sure.
To, I guess the garment life, you can call it.
The garment life.
And it's because it has nothing to do with like my personal reasons, but it has to do with worldly things. Mm-hmm. I want to wear what everyone else is wearing, like on New Year's, I had the hardest time because I was like, what am I supposed to wear? And I'm like, I'm going to look like a freaking, I don't know, like some Mormon old mom. And I was like, that's not a bad thing. And I'm like, I'm going to look like some old grandma, like a missionary. And I'm like, I am going to be a missionary. Like,
what's wrong with that?
Wrong, And, it kind of goes back to the point where like members, we are supposed to stand out, in every aspect of our life. And that is just another way, and going to the temple, it's like almost being like the kingdoms of heaven are opened up a little more,
Yeah.
Opened up a little more, and we get to see a little bit more of it. And the process, there's so much like symbolism in it that I have probably missed so much. I just, take it and I'm like, okay, awesome. Take it with a smile and I move on, and I don't actually sit there and pay attention to what it's actually saying enough because I don't even know what it means yet, But I get it. You feel anxious with any point in your life. It's another step closer to, being closer to God's kingdom, but it's almost another serious decision you have to make because I feel like me, I can't imagine leaving the church after having worked in the temple and having gone through and being a part of this. And, like being a woman able to give like blessings in the temple. It is the most amazing experience. And I could never leave that. I could never leave it, and if you feel anxious about going to the temple, then like you haven't been enough because you don't feel anxious at the temple. You don't.
Yeah.
You are constantly comforted and calmed and you feel peace automatically. At least I do when I walk into the temple, And it's like the temple workers are there welcoming you in, but there's also angels and your ancestors and everyone alongside you, every step of it, and they're all like hugging you and loving you and you can't even see it, like we're all loved so much by people that we can't even see. But just do it. Like if you're thinking about it, if you're, putting it off for, I get it if it's for personal reasons, personal spiritual reasons that you have to work through yourself and figure out because it is your journey, between you and God. But if you're putting it off for worldly things and for selfish like reasons, that's not the point of our gospel. It's not the point of going to the temple and we have to sacrifice, and that's just one of and it seems like a sacrifice, but it's not. It's a privilege and it's a blessing to get to go to the temple. And like Ellie again, she got called to the Baltics and her mission, like Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, there's not one temple in her whole mission, and I get to work like right next to the temple for a whole year of my mission, and I don't even realize, I feel like I take like this gospel for like, I feel like I take it for granted because I was born into it, and I don't realize how blessed I am to have the constant like companionship of the Holy Ghost, for like every point in my life, and I like don't realize how grateful and how blessed I am to be able to serve a mission, and it's nobody else's choice that I'm going. It is my choice solely. And I am choosing to spend it as a disciple of Christ, as a worker for him in another country with people that I don't know, that I don't speak the language. I don't, maybe enjoy the food. I don't know yet, but I mean, just go to the temple. It is an amazing place to be. So
I'm sorry. I just have to say, I love the way that you have really driven home the point that like you're all about, this is my choice. I love hearing you say that and just taking ownership of it, because I feel like in our society, not just in the church, but just in large, there's so much of like blaming other people and putting the responsibility on other people. And well, I didn't do this because of what so-and-so did and blah, 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 and just not taking ownership.
Right.
And so it's so refreshing to hear someone your age just be like, this is my choice. I just did it. You can just do it. Stop making excuses and just do it. Right. Like,
Right.
And thank you for saying that, because I think coming from you, that's so much more meaningful, because I remember, being your age, and when I had my mission call and was about ready to go through the temple and was unsure about all these things too, because I had friends that were nervous about going to the temple and had told me, oh, it's weird, it's different, and wearing your garments is tough, whatever. But then I also, on the other side of that, I had friends who were really great examples to me and got me so excited about going. And all it was them just sharing their experience with me and speaking openly about it and being excited about it. Like, I distinctly remember, because I remember thinking like, oh, the garments are going to be so restricting when I wear them. And I had a friend at the time who had recently gone through the temple who said like, oh, you know what? Like, I love wearing my garments. And now like I'm to a point where if I don't have them on, like I just feel, you just feel naked without them.
Yeah,
right?
right.
And I remember that thought just sunk into my head. She offered me this thought of, here's how you can feel about this. Why don't you try choosing that? And it worked for me. It got me excited about wearing garments. So I love that you're offering that thought to anyone who might be listening who has any apprehensions about going to the temple, wearing garments, going on a mission, whatever it might be. Like, you don't have to be scared about it. You don't have to paint it some way in your head. Like, just do it, try it, think of it, choose to think of it positively.
Yeah.
I just think that's so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just feel so pumped up right now.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, don't you feel just like so humbled, like listening to like Maddie?
Yes.
I mean, I just feel so, again, like Maddie, I owe so much of this to you, seriously, because I'm still in this job and I love it. No, really, I mean it, because it's like, no, for real. Like, it's amazing to be sitting here being taught by someone just like so young, and like, you haven't even gone on a mission yet. You've been out of high school for not even a year, right? And I feel like I am just sitting here as the student. Like, I mean, we said this on the podcast with Maddie Fisher, but I'd say the same thing. Like, President Nelson's like, when he spoke to the youth in 2018, when he was like, which is like prime when you were in high school, he said to you guys, like, you have the capacity to be wiser, stronger, and better than any previous generation. And I don't think he was meaning like, oh, later.
Yeah.
I think like he meant like right now. Yeah. Like, it's amazing just to be sitting here at the feet of someone that is a youth, really, and just like, and be taught. Like, this is prophecy fulfilled. Like, how are we going to get, no, seriously, like how are we going to get Jesus like here again and have the second coming happen? It's like through stuff and people like Maddie. It's awesome.
I was just thinking, speaking of Jesus, I kind of feel like this must be how all those doctors and people felt in the temple when Jesus was there teaching, and they're like, oh, like, I get it. This is how they felt.
It's incredible. Like, seriously, Maddie, I've like really enjoyed this. You've taught me tonight. This has been awesome.
Good.
So, I mean, we've been going for a while, but Maddie, like, thinking of your friends, your family, just anybody that happens to come across this podcast. Like, is there anything else that you'd like to say, especially in like your testimony of like Jesus and what he is to you, and just what you'd hope, that they would feel or find in their own faith in Jesus Christ?
Well, I have some members of my family who, like extended family, who have recently taken a step back from the church, and whether they take a step back into it in this life or the next, it's been interesting for me to watch the transition, of like a Relief Society president go like complete opposite, and it's just kind of a testament to me that like our testimony is constantly in need of nourishment, and your like last institute class, you said that, we talked about how like you can, in like times of need, rely on your, on like maybe your past testimony or your past self, but you can't dwell there. Like, you can't, you're not growing anymore.
Yeah.
And I think I'm guilty of it. I've definitely at times in my life, I'm like, you know what, like, it's fine. Like I got my brothers to go to church. Like I'm saved, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But it's not true. And, like the spirit can leave us if we choose it to. And by our actions, our daily actions, the little acts of like our habits and everything that we do is what changes our life. It is not the big, the big decisions. It is the small ones that lead up to the big ones. And if we stop, I guess, like devoting our time daily to Jesus and to ourselves and like our relationship with him, because it does come down to, your relationship with Christ. It doesn't have to do with your relationship with like people in your ward or, because that's not what it's about. Our everything on this earth is faulted. Human, like man is corrupt. It just is, and it's going to be until Christ comes again, and it's supposed to be like that, because it comes down to you and your relationship with Christ, and it can, dim. That light can dim if you let it, if you let it go out. And so, I kind of just want to like tell people like it is so good, like this gospel is so freeing. And if you surround yourself with the right things and the right people, it's effortless to live it, it's not a sacrifice that you have to make to live daily, because it's just what you've chosen. It's your daily choices, like all point to it. And I want them all to know that like I'm here for them. Like you can lean on my testimony if you ever need it, you can lean on Brother Bell's testimony if you like listen to this, and Allison's. And it's just, it's an amazing place to be, to have God hold your hand at all times and in all places and in all things. So.
It's good. It's good. Do you want to say anything?
I just want to make a prediction that this girl is going to be a really awesome seminary / institute teacher someday and eventually rule the world, we hope. And just kidding. No, you're incredible, Maddie. You really are incredible. And like Jason said, like we have been instructed by you and definitely uplifted by you and your example. And I feel just motivated right now to be a better person, to like fan the flame of my own light here and be like, okay, I can be better. And I'm excited about it. So you've got some natural gifts and you're going to be a fantastic missionary, as we've said. And just, we're so thankful that you spent your time with us tonight. And we know that whoever is going to listen to this, it's going to bless them so much. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Is there anything else that's been on your heart that you want to share before we end?
Just know that the temple is awesome. Like go to the temple, that my testimony was built off of the temple before it was anything else. And I feel like I feel like it was because I didn't understand the scriptures, when I started, this whole, process of my own testimony. But I understood the temple and I understood how I felt there. And
you're referring to when you were young.
Yeah. Yes.
Like this
when I was young,
when
I like went and did baptisms for the first time.
Okay.
And then
so that stuck with you.
A few years later, 100%.
Wow.
And then a few years later, I got like the privilege to I had the privilege to take my brothers for their first time, you know, when they went to the temple. And I knew from a very young age that no matter what happened in my life and my family's lives, because of the temple and because we were sealed in the temple, we would be together like forever. It doesn't matter what decisions they make from here until, you know, until the next life. I knew that as long as we were sealed in the temple and as long as I did what I was supposed to do, my family would be blessed for it, whether or not they knew it, whether or not they saw it, you know, and I would be with them forever. And I've been blessed with absolutely amazing, like, parents and an amazing, like, relationship with my brothers. You know, me and them, we are like best friends. We are best friends, you know, and they call me mom. They call me, you know, they're like, sometimes you're not so much sister to us, you know, you're more than that, you know, and I feel a deep sense of gratitude for the temple because of that. So,
wow. Well, thank you. Maddie, I'm just digesting everything that you've said. Like I felt the Spirit so strong. That was awesome. So, but we thank you for coming on, Maddie. I could listen to you forever.
Thanks for having me.
Let's have you on when you get back.
It sounds great.
Seriously. I would love to do a
awesome.
part 2 when you get back and just hear how everything's
I'd
just
love
even
it.
grown since then.
I'd love it. I could even send you voice messages
Oh my gosh,
while
that'd
I'm
be
there.
awesome.
And
Yeah.
you got some updates.
I'd love that.
Whole episode of just like
That's a great idea. Yeah. Well, it's likely I'll still be at Brighton for years to
Good.
come with how this class is going. So I'll look forward to seeing you then as well. But for all of you that have listened, just thank you. We hope you felt the Spirit tonight. And I mean, just, you know, Maddie's incredible, but I mean, it's the temple and it's Jesus just holding each of our hands. It's going to make the difference and make the light shine. Like you can see the light shine from Maddie tonight, but hope you've felt it even through what she has said. And that's just what Jesus Christ does in his gospel and the temple and all of that and our covenants. And so with that, we thank you and we look forward to next week. And please, especially, you know, share this episode. It's a special one, you know, share it out there. Let's let the world hear this amazing testimony from someone that's just so young, that's like leading the charge for gathering Israel and preparing the world for his second coming. So we thank you, Maddie. We love you.
Thank you,
and
guys.
we'll see you guys next week. See ya.